My name is Bailey Sparks, and today I will be reading Vote for Our Future. Vote for Our Future by Margaret McNamara and Micah Player. What age do you think the people on this cover are? Why do you think children will be holding a sign that says Vote for Our Future? Let's find out. Every 2 years, on the Tuesday after the first Monday of November, Stanton Elementary School closes for the day. Does anyone know what is special about the Tuesday after the first Monday of November every 2 years? For repairs? Nope. For a holiday? Nuh-uh. For vacation? No way. Stanton Elementary School closes for... Why might the school be closing on this particular day? Election Day! It changes from a school to a polling station. What's a polling station? A polling station is where people vote. Has anyone ever been to a polling station with an adult to help them vote? What was that like? The reason people vote is to choose who makes the laws of the country. We should all vote, said LaToya. We should all vote to make the future better. We can't vote until we turn 18, said Lizzie. So what can we do? Can anyone predict how the students might get involved with the election, even though they can't vote? The kids of Stanton Elementary School did their research. They looked in books and made notes. They went online and found all kinds of information. They even took a trip to their local election office and picked up forms. I can't wait till I can vote for real, said Amal. Me either, said everybody else. Kids have to live with adult choices. If kids have to live with adult choices, isn't it important that the representatives making those choices are represented by the adults in our community? This way, our voices can be heard. This is where you all have the power. You can make sure that your family, adult friends, and members of your community register to vote. The kids at Stanton Elementary School were ready to spread the word. Katie and her mom made flyers and handed them out. Don't forget to vote, Katie told one busy dad. I didn't even know there was an election, he said. Now you do, said Katie. Can I go with you when you vote? Jasmine asked her big sister. It's a pain to vote, her sister said. I'm not even registered, added her friend. It's not hard to register, said Jasmine. You can do it together, and I can show you how. Nadia and her auntie went door to door. Voting is a right, Nadia said, a right that women didn't have 100 years ago. Did you know that at one time in the United States, women didn't have the right to vote? Neither did anyone who wasn't a white male landowner. That's crazy. People fought hard so that everyone has the right to vote, which is why it's important that we don't let that right go to waste. One lady told them, I don't like standing in lines. I don't like lines either, answered Nadia's auntie. But if we stand in line for coffee or for a movie or at a bank, I bet we can stand in line to vote, said Nadia. Said the lady. Maybe we can. At Jaden's house, the whole family was making their voting plans. Jaden's dad was voting before work. Jaden's mom was voting after work. I've walked to that polling station every election since I could vote, Jaden's great-grand told him. But I can't walk so far anymore. A volunteer can drive you, said Jaden. Let's get you set up, said Jaden's mom. Did you know that if you can't go to a polling station, there are volunteer programs to drive people? Also, you can request a mail-in ballot, which means you can send your vote by mail. Many people will be voting by mail this year due to COVID-19, so they don't have to be around other people to vote. Mia and Noah and Jamal had a bake sale. Don't forget to vote, Mia said as she handed out change. I'll be away on election day, said one woman. In our state, you can vote early, said Mia. Or you can vote by mail, said Jamal. The voter guide tells you how. Voting? What's the big deal? Asked a teenager. People fought wars so we can vote, said Mia. That's a big deal. Why should I vote? Said a sad lady. Nothing ever changes. Besides, one vote won't make a difference. Are you kidding? Said Jamal. Changes are made every day because people voted. Every vote counts. Some elections are really close, so it's important that everyone votes so that their voice is heard. Every vote matters. By the time it was the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November, every kid at Stanton Elementary School had spread the word to their families, to their neighbors, to friends, to strangers, to friends of strangers. The whole town had a voting plan. And on election day, voters came early in the morning before the sun was up. They waited in line with coffee. They rolled in on wheelchairs. They voted for the first time and for the 50th time. They ran in at the last minute. They came with their sons and daughters, their nieces and nephews, their brothers and sisters, their cousins and friends. What do we notice about the people on these pages? They're all different. They came from different backgrounds and are of different races, religions, genders, ages, and abilities. They speak different languages. See the vote here sign with different languages? It's really important that all kinds of different people vote so that different people are represented in the government. Everybody has different ideas, and that's okay. Being able to express those varying ideas in the government so that everyone's needs are addressed is what makes democracy so great. On the first Wednesday after the first Monday of November, all the votes had been counted. The results were so close, the votes had to be counted again. Some people won, and some people lost. The laws of the country began to change. What branch of the government makes the laws? Does anyone remember? Right, the legislative branch. This means that the election in the book was an election for Congress people. Stanton Elementary School went back to being a school. Can anyone see what the girl on the right wrote in her book? Right, Latoya for Senate and For a New Tomorrow. Latoya was inspired to someday run for office. This is important because children are the future. Someday, some of you might work in the government to create change too. And the future began to change. Get out the vote. When adults vote, they vote for people and causes they believe in. They vote so that those who speak for us, our local and state representatives, our congresspeople, our president, will follow policies and make laws that are good for everyone in the country. Acts of Congress are laws that have to be followed by everyone in the United States of America. Here are some acts of Congress that made the future better. The Postal Service Act was signed into law by our nation's first president, George Washington, in 1792. It established the United States Post Office Department. Nowadays, the U.S. Postal Service delivers over 140 billion pieces of mail. Before the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1866, people who had been enslaved had no rights at all. This was the first act of Congress to make it a law that every citizen be treated equally. Americans still struggle to preserve every person's civil rights today. The Yellowstone National Park Protection Act became a law in 1872. Now there are national parks in every U.S. state and territory, consisting of over 80 million acres, preserved for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. The Indian Citizenship Act became law in 1924. Although this law granted citizenship to all Indigenous people, many Native people did not have the ability to vote until 1962. The Air Pollution Control Act of 1955 was the first law to declare that air pollution was a national problem. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed as a result of the Civil Rights Movement. This law made it a crime to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person because of their race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin. It continues to be amended to protect the rights of all. The American with Disabilities Act, passed in 1990, states that people who are differently abled must be accommodated in schools, in the workplace, and in public spaces. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010. It ensures that all people in the United States have access to health care at an affordable cost. Has anyone heard of these acts before? That's good. We'll discuss them more later. When you cast your first vote, what kind of future will you vote for? When you vote for our leaders one day, what topics or qualities of the leader would be important to you? What makes someone a good leader? What have you all learned that you can do to be a part of the next election? The author of this book is Margaret McNamara. She lives in New York City, and she often writes about her daughter's school days or her own. Her real name is Brenda Bowen. Margaret McNamara is her pen name. She says, "I write under the name Margaret McNamara to honor my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother. The real Margaret grew up a very long time ago in County Clare in Ireland, and she was one of the few girls in her village who could read and write." The illustrator is Micah Player. Micah was born in Alaska as the seventh of 9 kids in a family of drifters. His daydreams of far-off places that he drew in a sketchbook served as a home base for a life on the move. Currently, he lives in Utah with a teacher and his children. So as a future teacher, I see this book being used at the beginning of a unit on elections. After reading the book, the class would go over information about elections, important elections of the past. You might even talk about the Electoral College because that's becoming a more relevant issue. But more importantly, students would engage in their own research. These are some resources for student research. As you can see, there's not just research on the Republican and Democrat Party, but students should also be familiar with other third parties, like the Constitution Party, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and the Reform Party, to name a few. One idea for student research is to host a salon. And no, I'm not talking about the kind of salon where you go to get your hair cut or your nails painted. I'm talking about the kind of salon that was hosted during the Enlightenment period, where a group of intellectuals would gather to talk about different hot-button issues of the time. So what you would do is you would have, you would come up with a list of characters for students to play. And these characters could be anyone from, if it's a current election year, people that are running for office. It could be people that are currently in office. And if you have a big enough class, you could do recent people who are in office, like the governor prior to Roy Cooper. You want to make sure that your list of characters includes people from all different areas of government. You could do a recent Supreme Court nominee, local senators and representatives. You could do people from local government. The president should definitely be included in the salon. You'll also want to have a character that is the host or hostess. Every salon back in the day had a host or hostess where people would come to usually their home, and they would all have food, and that host or hostess would be in charge of asking the questions about those issues. So one of the students, because this is a student-led activity, will play that host or hostess and will be in charge of coming up with questions to ask based on topics that you want the class to cover. So each student would draw a name out of a hat to make it fair. You want to remind students that this person may or may not represent their beliefs, but it's important, you know, when you're an actor or actress, to represent those beliefs and to play them even if it's not something that you agree with. the person playing a villain on TV probably isn't a villain in real life, right? It's also important that during the salon, everyone maintains respect. So you may not agree with your person's beliefs, you may not agree with another character's beliefs, but during the salon, it's your job to respect everyone at the table, and make sure that everyone has a safe space to voice their character's opinions and beliefs so that we can understand their platform a little bit better. So each student would have a data collection sheet, and they would have a computer lab or a media day where they would be given the opportunity to research that person's opinions on some of the hot button issues. As a future teacher, I would probably stay away from some of the more controversial social issues because you really want this to be a positive space where everyone feels welcomed at the table. So you could cover things like economics instead of those social issues. So you can give students some resources and some pages to find things on their own. They can also come up with their own resources. Again, those are included here to get them started. And then on the day of course, it's supposed to be a really fun event. So if they want to, they can dress up. And that can be anything from dressing exactly like their character if they want to, or, you know, if they're a Democrat, they can just wear a blue t-shirt just to represent their party. However they feel they want to participate in that way. Also, the teacher should, or the students can, provide food. You know, it's supposed to be fun. It's a salon. Everybody eats and they talk. And the students come at a round table, you know, arrange the desks in a circle, and they'll all be playing their character that day. And the host or hostess will be asking those questions they came up with based on the topic list you gave them. And everyone will have a turn to be a part of the conversation and to talk as their character of those opinions and beliefs. And this will get students familiarized with their character and also other people's characters, so they have a general understanding of the platforms of, you know, current candidates or current people in office. Another activity that students can do is a community voter registration event, just like the kids in the book helped with the polling station. And they also help, you know, inform people about the upcoming election. If it's an election year, you definitely want to have kids be a part of their community. You know, kids don't get the opportunity to vote, but they do have the power to make sure that people in their community have the opportunity to vote so that their voices are heard. This is where children have the power, right? So of course you can do, Teaching Tolerance has some resources for helping people get registered to vote. So does Rock the Vote. They have a free informational packet where children can read through those resources, and then it's very clear cut to get people to register to vote. In North Carolina, you can do this online through the DMV website. So people can come and you can have, you know, again, it should be a student-led event where they help people in their community register. This can be during school or after school hours as well. And during times of COVID-19, this is an event that can be hosted virtually. Some resources for that, we've got, of course, Rock the Vote. Students can also participate in their own mock election. Every Kid Votes hosts a mock election where, you know, if kids were determining who the president was, if it's an election year for the president, they get to see, you know, who that president would be based on the children's votes around the nation, which is really cool. So that students can get practice being a part of that. Mainly the thing with social studies and teaching about an election is the idea of praxis. Not only that students learn about the information, but they self-reflect on the information, they teach it to others, and then they go out in the community and they get involved with the information that they've learned. You know, what's the good of learning if, you know, we just dump it into the brains of our students and they hold that information within and don't do anything with it? And with social studies, it's so easy to get engaged with the community. So that's what we're trying to do here with these activities. There's some other really good teaching and curriculum resources with the Teaching Tolerance Future Voters project, which is going on right now for 2020. Kids Voting also has some classroom activities that you can use, and of course, Scholastic has some election curriculum. So thank you guys for watching.